Coach Niele Ivey is here to talk Notre Dame, Fighting Irish, really interesting team. Some team that might be the final team standing. So you're going to want to pay attention to this. Locked on Women's Basketball starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and happy Wednesday. I am Howard Megdal, your host, welcoming you to Locked On Women's Basketball. I want to thank you for making us your first listen every day. Over 200,000 of you showed up in August to listen to us the way we show up for you 6 days a week. And of course, it is not just me, it is the incredible team across the board at thenexthoops.com, where we have over 100 reported pieces every single month about the game of women's basketball. Subscribe, $9 a month, $72 a year. You get them all right to your inbox, and you make sure you're supporting the work that's being done. We believe all of it matters. If you do too, join us, thenexthoops.com. And we've had no shortage of work covering, it's hard to call it work, covering the Notre Dame program. Coach, what your team has done, what you have put together, I just, as way of introduction, as a point of personal privilege, it is not easy to take over for a legend of legends, as you well know, in the woman who recruited you in Muffet McGraw. I guess I'm so curious because I've read the stories through the years about how you had your heart set on playing at North Carolina. Muffet came out, saw you kind of behind the scenes because the rules were a little different back then, and changed the trajectory of things. It obviously worked out pretty well for everyone involved, considering all that followed and the titles and the career that you've had. But I guess I wonder, when you think about how you go about recruiting, how much your own experience informs that.
Absolutely. I think relationships are the center of the way that I recruit. And yes, my heart was set on North Carolina. A lot of influence from Michael Jordan. I just loved him and just felt like, okay, this was a great place for me to, have a career, but it didn't, the cards did not go that way. And met, Coach McGraw, was introduced to the Notre Dame family and the tradition and the network, and fell in love. And I built a great relationship with Coach McGraw. And I'm still here, and it's, really impacted my life in such a positive way. And the way that I recruit now is based off of, my experience with having an incredible relationship with the head coach. That's kind of how I recruit. I try to really build strong relationships with our recruits, and, try to explain how positive my experience was here as a player, and having that experience, kind of walking in their shoes, I think has been helpful in my journey as a recruiter.
When you look at the program's growth over your time in charge, again, to go back to the idea that you are taking over a program that had remarkable success. I mean, in the handful of programs in the history of the game, but indisputably, and even when you go beyond just that top line number of wins, you are seeing consistent growth in terms of how successful the teams have been. You go 24-9 2 years ago, 27-6 last year. I guess now 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 28-7 last year. We're turning the page on it. But your net rating in all three seasons got better, from 15 to 21-2 to 23-3. You are, it seems, finding a way to be elite consistently, despite an enormous number of injuries that you guys have had to weather and overcome. Right. I guess I wonder, when you sort of look at those numbers, just beyond the wins, right? Is there a top line number that you're saying, gee, look at us, and again, I'll knock on wood for you, healthy coming into this year, right? That you see as sort of the next team spot for growth?
Right. Yeah, I feel like I have incredible pieces here. I mean, I have the return of Olivia Miles, who you mentioned that was on the podcast, where All-American point guard, ton of experience, just she's in a class of her own. She's a magician on the floor. Her coming back from her injuries, she's going to be spectacular. She's so hungry, so ready to get back on the floor. Returning All-Americans and Hannah Hidalgo, one of the best. Also another in a league of her own point guard. I don't think I've ever been around a program that's had two dynamic point guards in the way that we have. Sonia Citron, Maddie Westbell, and add some incredible transfers, All-American post player, freshman, and a couple combo guards, pure shooter and Emma Risch, and all-around athlete and Cass Prosper. So just a lot of great pieces. And I feel like for me, my goal every year is just to get better. Number one, you mentioned already, is staying healthy. We've unfortunately have gotten hit by a lot of injuries that has really had to, I've had to pivot in a lot of ways that I've had to coach because of the injury. So I just try to work on just getting better every day, performing at a high level, competing at a high level. And I feel like I have elite, self-motivated performers, and we are all, they're so locked in, they're so focused. We have a lot of experience this year, which I think is going to help us. And so I'm hoping always just to get better every year.
Sonia, obviously, there's not really been a player quite like her to have the kind of, triple double success she has so early. It's interesting because in theory and sort of in the old school way of thinking about it, you'd say, all right, well, she's a one, Hannah's a one. How do they necessarily fit together? But as we're seeing, the game has evolved in such a way that multiple distributors on the floor at any one time has gone from an incredible luxury to almost a necessity to be at the very top. Do you see it that way? And do you feel as if there's a certain joy that you get as you're designing your offense, knowing you're able to sort of build plays around each of them being primary facilitators?
Absolutely. I think, again, having multiple ball handlers allows my offense to be more open. It opens up the floor more. I have spacers. I have great shooters. I have forwards that can shoot threes. And there's so many threats on the floor. It's almost like you got to choose which person that you're going to leave, and you can't. And having that, I think, has probably been the most exciting for me, even watching it this summer, is I have multiple 3-level scorers in every position. And that's just been really fun and exciting. Like you mentioned, like I'm looking at the offense and what works with our newcomers and how just building chemistry offensively and finding schemes that I feel that can highlight the strengths of every one of my players. And that's been a lot of fun for me to see and to be on the court with him this summer. And that's my focus this preseason, is making sure the offense fits the strengths of this group. But it's been a lot of fun just to have multiple, I like to play with pace. So having multiple guards that can push tempo and to space the floor, I think is going to be exciting for people to watch.
It is worth noting, right? You're 41st in the country last year in pace. You're doing this without sacrificing being able to take good care of the basketball. I mean, that's putting it mildly, in the top 10 percentile when it comes to turnover percentage. It's getting better year after year after year. Do you feel as if those numbers can be juiced even further? Because again, seeing the two of them, like you said, together as you design it, is there another level to reach with that? Or are there other areas where you feel like, we can build in, whether it's rebounding, whether it's, forcing even more turnovers than you did last year? I'm just wondering sort of what that next level looks like to you.
Absolutely. I would love to force more turnovers. I think defensively, we can impact the ball more this year, adding some athleticism in the forward position and then adding Liv's size back, having Cass back. I think that's going to help us impact the ball defensively, which can force turnovers. And I believe that Olivia coming back with her experience, she does a great job, obviously, of facilitating. I think she's going to help as far as, our assist to turnover ratio. And I think Hannah just having a year under her belt, I think you're going to see a tremendous improvement from her. She had to carry the bulk of the offense and being that, the primary distributor, and, they're going to help each other, Olivia and Hannah, but also having that year under your belt as a point guard, understanding the system, knowing what the ACC looks like in non-conference. I think that's going to really help her in her decision-making this year. So I'm excited. I have some forwards that can create plays. I'm going to run through the post a lot, and we have better passers, in all different areas. Kate Koval, I think the one thing that everyone's going to be really surprised about is her passing ability. She has great vision for post. She obviously is an incredible scorer, great size, but she can also pass really well. So I think our team, we're very unselfish, but I think you're going to see that. So I'm hoping that category improves as well.
It's really exciting because, in Carlin and King, you have a couple of transfers coming in. We'll get to in segment 3, players who fit what you're doing.
Right.
That's what's so interesting to me. It's not just that you're bringing in talent, you're bringing in freshman talent as well, but
Right.
they make sense for the system. Segment 2, we're going to talk about Hannah Hidalgo. And I just, to sort of exit segment 1, I will just urge all of you. Some people go to art museums, or they go to theaters. I like to go to CBB Analytics and just look at all the green up and down the numbers as it comes to your program. It's just a thing of true beauty. So back with Coach Niele Ivey talking Notre Dame. I am Howard Megdal. This is Locked On Women's Basketball. Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel has an opportunity to help you. It's America's #1 sports book, and they now have a deal offered for NFL Sunday Ticket. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube or YouTube TV. So when you hear people cries of anguish coming out of my home, a New York Giants family, it'll be because we are able here in the Philadelphia area to watch the New York Giants, I believe, get crushed by the Minnesota Vikings in week 1. It's inevitable, but we're going to do it all the same because we are a loyal family. With a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you'll need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. Locked On Women's Basketball is also brought to you by Miracle Made Sheets. And we're finally into the fall. Before you know it, it's going to be winter, and we're going to face the opposite problem we did this summer, which is that sometimes your sheets are too hot, sometimes they're too cold. Doesn't matter, though, they're not either if you use Miracle Made bed sheets. They're inspired by NASA with silver-infused fabrics that designed to keep you at the perfect temperature. My wife and I love how they look on the bed. It is a perfect match. You can have them too by going to trymiracle.com/locked-on, and you can try your Miracle Made sheets with an extra discount. Use the promo code LOCKED-ON at checkout. You get 3 free towels, save an extra 20%. Again, upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Try miracle.com/locked-on, code LOCKED-ON for your 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Thank you to Miracle Made for sponsoring this episode. Yeah, gonna be a real 2-15 season, I think, for the New York Giants in our family. It's okay. We'll make the best of it. So back with head coach Niele Ivey of Notre Dame, and what this program has put together included, to go back to our conversation about recruiting, coming right to our neck of the woods. I'm coming to you from Cherry Hill, right over the border from Merchantville, home, of course, of the great Hannah Hidalgo. And I can tell you this, the high school coaches around here, whenever Hannah came up, oh, they're so grateful to you for taking her finally away from them having to face.
I knew you were going to say that.
I mean, celebration, tears of joy now that she's gone on to school. But, to me, the most impressive thing about seeing her, I had the privilege of seeing her here in high school, knew the transition was going to be as impressive as it was. It's just the way it translated right away on the defensive end. The steals number she's putting up, it's video game numbers on the defensive side of the ball. How do you account for a player being able to, in year 1, be right at the top? I mean, if she wasn't at the top, she was near the top of steals per 40, steal percentage, you name it.
Right.
Being able to generate those kinds of turnovers for you right away.
I'm honestly, that is a gift. I haven't seen it, and I've said this in a lot of interviews. I've never seen anyone change the game like that since Skylar Diggins. And her defense is contagious. She takes so much pride in it, and it's every day. She's one of the most competitive players I've ever seen, as far as, her drive, her work ethic. She changes the energy defensively. Like, everyone stepped up their defense last year. Bringing her onto our program is just, when you get a program changer like that, especially on the defensive end. I mean, it's a joy for a coach. She is just, I mean, we're going to our practice guys. She has no fear. She's fearless defensively, and that ignites her. It ignites her game. When she gets to lock up somebody defensively, or turn them in the backcourt, or get a turnover or steal. It just really ignites everything that she does, and it fuels us. It fuels us. Her competitive nature just fuels what we do, and she's just a special player. I mentioned earlier about us wanting to impact the ball, and I mean, she's the head of the snake on our defense. We go where she goes, because she just brings so much energy on and as a two-way player. So I mean, I just love it. It fires me up.
This Jersey toughness she brings, it obviously is something that you want to encourage and also try and make sure it's channeled in the right way at the same time. I know, obviously, it's St. Louis toughness for you, but I know this firsthand, right? Like,
Yeah.
how much has your own journey allowed you to kind of guide her in that way? And do you remember, like, a moment that really stands out to you where you were able to impart that on her?
Yeah, I have, obviously, her skill set is way more elite than when I played, but I love playing defense. Point guard. That I took pride in my defense. I always was the hardest worker on the court. Loved stepping up to a challenge of defending great players, and took a lot of pride in that. And I had a lot of toughness coming from St. Louis, and play with a lot of passion, a lot of heart, and I feel like that's how she is. And so a lot of times it's just like you mentioned, like allowing her to be her, but also reeling her in when I need to, especially if it's foul trouble, or depending on the game scenario. But I allow her to be her. I mean, I try not to take away from her gifts and the things that makes her go, and just try to guide her alongside whenever she needs it. But I give her a lot of freedom, and I think that's what I love that, because I feel like she can just really be herself, and we feed off of that. We feed off the energy that she brings. But I try to bring in experience as much as I can. But I understand, like, I coach with a lot of passion. I have a lot of fire with the way that I communicate with the team and with her. And yeah, and so it's a lot of fun, having a point guard like that.
To have, I will just say, you kind of dismissed your own experience, and we must not let that go unchecked. We're going to fact check you there. National championship winning point guard, WNBA standout. So let's not, we can say it if you don't want to say it, but a very impressive career. But it does go back to even the part of the season where you guys fell short. And I wonder whether, I covered that game live. That was one of the strangest games I ever saw, where you committed, I want to say it was like 5 turnovers. I mean, it was like you made very few mistakes. You forced 26, right? Or something like that with Oregon State. And they just made so many contested shots, and you still ended up only losing by 5.
Right.
Does that, for her specifically, right? Because she was so upset after that one.
Yeah.
Does that help fuel her? Do you think she'll be a better player because of it?
Absolutely. I think some of the hardest experiences and lessons are in losses, and she took that one really, really hard. It was an awkward type of game. With so many stoppages of play, the nose ring, like it was so many factors that happened in that game that were just not what you expect. And so, we had to adjust from that, and we found a way to kind of, fight the storm, weather the storm within that game. And like you mentioned, I thought Oregon State shot the ball really well. They had a lot of size. We were down with numbers, but I felt like we still had an opportunity to win that game. We unfortunately came up short, but also I know that that's going to ignite us. Like, our conversation after the game, watching what Hannah did this summer individually, and seeing her come back, and Sonia, like at Maddie, there's so many players that that experienced that loss. Unfortunately, we're right there, just trying to get over that hump. And it's definitely didn't take away from all the success that we had the entire season, but it definitely left that desire, to win, and the experience. And sometimes it's always hard going through it, but we're gonna, we're gonna come out on the other side because of that. And I definitely feel like that's fueling our team, especially Hannah.
It's a remarkable thing to consider. The idea that she could somehow be even more motivated is hard to
Right,
imagine. But just in general, that in so many ways, a freshman year is a floor, and to
right,
set such a high floor for where she's headed, uh,
right.
it's I I cannot wait. I look forward to seeing what her college career is like, and I expect to be covering her at the next level for a very long time to come as well. Yeah, but with three Jersey kids on that roster, no shortage of motivation for sure. Well,
Exactly.
I want to go up and down the roster to talk about your newcomers as well,
Okay.
and what's ahead. Right back in segment three, I'm Howard Megdal. You're listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. Back here with head coach Niele Ivey of Notre Dame. And so when I talked about the fit, right, and it's just sort of a way of introduction, I haven't had a chance to see your freshman, Kate Koval. I have seen obviously Liza Carlin and Liatu King. The latter, of course, who I think scored like 34 against you in a game. I mean, she brought it. But in both of these cases, these are these just skilled passing forwards who can also hit the boards for you. Again,
Right.
just sort of all the ways that, like, in the way that your team checks every box when you go up and down to the things that you do well, this broad base of skill.
Hmm.
How early do you identify who can come in? You also, like you said, with so many returners, there wasn't necessarily a lot of space for playing time. So you have to be so selective of it. How do you go about doing that and figuring out what makes sense for your program specifically?
Yeah, for me, especially with the newcomers and additions, it's like trying to figure out building chemistry. That's what I'm doing. I did this summer, and looking at different lineups together. Right now I'm doing different combo groups of building chemistry with a lot of different looks with our team, and it's exciting. It's exciting to feel like we have more depth, and we're very, very skilled in a lot of different positions. But I also love that we have a ton of experience. And I think that's what Liza and Liatu brings. They bring a ton of experience. Liza, first team Big East. Liatu, as you mentioned, one of her best performances against us. First team was most improved, I think, 2 years ago. So I'm bringing a lot of experience in the forward position, bringing back an experienced point guard, and have a lot of experience coming in with Hannah and Sonia. So we have a lot of different looks, a lot of different pieces, and my job is to try to make it all make sense, put the puzzle together. But I'm just really encouraged with the pieces that I have, and I'm really grateful and blessed because they're fun to work with, high character, they work so hard. So now my job is just to build that chemistry as we prepare for the season.
I see you have decided to take the hard road when it comes to the non-conference
Yes,
schedule.
I have.
Just so people have a sense of it. Everything from Purdue away, you got USC playing against Texas. By the way, that alone, right? Like Hannah Hidalgo versus Rory Harmon, that is going to be one of the matchups of the year. There's this up and coming new program, Connecticut, that I think is headed for big things, and so
I know.
that's always a fun one. What
Yes.
what was sort of the driving factor here for you when you put together this? Again, and we talked about this at the top. This is a team with clearly national championship talent. You're going to be in that discussion. Is it just getting you guys ready for the grind of ACC play?
Absolutely. I feel like non-conference always prepares my team for the ACC tournament and also for the NCAA tournament. We're trying to build an incredible resume, try to challenge ourselves as much as we can. The USC, we haven't played USC in a while, so it's kind of reintroducing that matchup. Obviously with Juju Watkins, like I'm trying to grow the game or be a part of growing the game. And I felt like the way that I can do that is to continue to bring in these type of matchups that I think women's college basketball wants to see. And the ACC SEC challenge, which is new, Last year, that was really exciting. We played Tennessee at Tennessee last year, so excited to play to play Texas. Really, really talented team and roster. Have incredible returning players, as you mentioned, Rory Harmon. So my non-conference, I feel like it's going to be exciting. It's definitely challenging, but I always feel like it's going to prepare us for ACC and hopefully, to make NCAA run.
And the ACC has 78 teams now. Is that correct? Is that what are you guys up to in this?
Yeah, we were. I think the last
there's
2 seasons,
Stanford.
8.
There's
8 teams that went to the tournament, and now we've added Cal, SMU, and Stanford. So, such an incredible and competitive conference, which is a lot of fun. I mean, there's no days off at any point with the schedule. So, I'm gonna be a little stressed this season with this schedule.
On the plus side, the ACC network will be running 24/7 on the TVs in my house. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of it. For you, when you think about all that you've done and all that you want to do here, how do you set those goals for yourself, for your team? As I mentioned, obviously, you will be in the discussion as one of those teams. I don't know what preseason is going to look like in terms of the top 25, but that's of course always a start, and it's probably more subjective than it's ever been with all the movement with transfers. How do you set it for yourself and for your team?
Yeah, I mean, the goal is always obviously the expectation is to take care of home, to compete for a national championship, get back to a Final Four. Trying to get back to a Final Four obviously is always the goal, but it's so lofty, that expectation. My goal is to stay healthy and to get better every day. I think that's, if I can keep it where it's not as I don't want it to be stressful for the group. The expectation is already what it is. There's a standard here at Notre Dame, and my team knows when you put that jersey on, like, you carry that legacy that was built before you. And so they understand that expectation, and it's just to go out, to compete, to grow together, and to get better every day. And like I said, hopefully God is on our side this year. We can stay healthy and just feel like we can we're growing and getting better every day. There's so much parity in women's basketball that the top 10, it's going to be probably a roller coaster because there's so many programs that are really, really talented and elite. So we always want to be in that conversation, but really focusing on building chemistry and getting better.
Well, you certainly are in that conversation. Cannot wait to see it all unfold. Coach, thank you so much for your time. To our listeners, thank you for making us your first listen every day. You get an upgrade in the host chair tomorrow. Gigi Spear will be joining you, and we'll continue to be with you 6 days a week. Until then, I'm Howard Megdal, wishing all of you a wonderful Wednesday.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network,